I have prepared a PowerPoint presentation. OFAC, an old world FAQ. What I'm going to cover in today's live stream is mostly just the core changes. Despite me doing all of the kind of army guides and everything else like that, I've only done four so far. So I don't necessarily have a nice encyclopedic knowledge, and my brain just kind of doesn't work that way. So I'm gonna cover the top headline stuff for people that want to know. Most of the stuff, like I think most of the people that kind of tune into my channel are here for beginner sort of stuff. So you're probably going to want to know just what the what the highlights are. So let's crack through this. First up, for anyone that hasn't come across this before, what is an FAQ and errata? It's frequently asked questions. I'm sure you knew that, but we'll just cover the bases anyway. And in games of Warhammer and the whatnot, it's a way to update the rules as games go on. Unintended consequences arise, and the games developers will want to kind of fix and change all of those sorts of stuff. Normally, it is kind of just like wording tweaks and stuff like that. But as they say in the article, the game's been in for about 18 months now. They've done some very light tuning and have kind of given developer notes and everything like that so far, but they haven't done any major wholesale changes, and that's what this document is. So what I'm going to kind of go through in this is the big headline winners, what's kind of come out on top, what's done fine changes, and then kind of the losers, I think, from the FAQ. Obviously, this is all kind of my opinion. I'm doing very broad strokes. I'm not necessarily going to go too much into the army details and stuff like this. So let's kind of just crack through it and see what happens. So first big winner from the FAQ, infantry, massive winner here. Heavy and regular infantry can now fight in 2 ranks when they have been charged, not upon charging, but when they have been charged, which is in Old World, it is more than likely to be the case that they're going to receive charges than they're going to be giving them. So this is kind of great news for them. It affects heavy and regular infantry, not monstrous. So just bear that in mind. So they can fight in 2 ranks, and that makes the fighting rank 2 ranks. So I've got the second point there. Spears can now effectively fight in 3 ranks because they give a supporting attack, and the row behind that second rank will now be giving a supporting attack. So you're going to on a let's say you've got a front line of 15 guys, front line of 5 guys. You're going to be getting 15 attacks, assuming they all have 1 attack each, which is really great. Really great news for spears. You're going to be able to you'll take a bunch of hits from a cavalry charge, but you'll be able to maybe get 10 hits back, which is really nice. Sword and shield infantry, I think this is great. They suddenly have a purpose. What have I got here? I've just been working on these guys who did not do all that well in a game against dwarfs last week. But I have been, from last time, I have been working on this block of skeleton infantry. And they, with their swords and shields, will now be getting +1 to their armor save in combat, which is really great news. Really fantastic. Then, in an additional way as well, if you're still really new to Old World, you might kind of think that trying to kill people in combat and stuff like that is the way that you win. That would be kind of, and logically, you can kind of see that. Actually, the best way to win kind of games, and it's a bit easier than trying to totally wipe out a unit, is to kind of force an opposing unit to break and flee. And you do that through a thing called combat res. I won't go into it now, but basically you're trying to build up and beat someone else's combat resolution. And there's a number of different ways that you can do that. Normally you get it by injuring people, and then your formation will give you combat resolution. Infantry are now getting an additional combat resolution. If they outnumber their opponents, which is really great. Just from what are you painting now? Is there a particular unit that has become a tier 1 now, which were considerably worse? So I think on the whole, at the moment, this is this is music to my ears. I'm painting Empire Spearmen. Yeah, no, it's really great news for them. So Empire State Troops, they gain the Horde rule now. So they can gain an additional combat resolution per extra rank they have. So Empire State Troops are now just like, I think are doing really well there. So, and just going back to what you're painting now's question, I don't think there's a particular unit in the game that is going to be the best. As I say in the army guide video that I put out, the big bad guy of Old World at the moment is the Chaos Dragon, who I will get to in a little bit. But yeah, on the whole, dwarfs, as they are like purely infantry, I think have done really well here. As an army, they're already in pretty good shape, but they've done really nicely here. Standard sword and board infantry units are going to do really well as well across most armies. I would say there hasn't been much of a change in things like initiative or cancelling people's initiative, which I think could go a long way. One of the things that I've been saying for a while is I think that spear troops should give units disordered charges if you're a cavalry unit and you charge them, and that would negate the initiative bonus that cavalry would have, which I think could be a really interesting way to play spear troops, because then you're basing it on kind of like medieval history and why you would carry spears in the first place. It's not to like kind of, well, it is a little bit to poke through, but they're mostly an anti cavalry thing. So I think having infantry that could do that would be really nice. But yeah, so this is the first big winners. The next big winners are the level 1 and 2 wizards, which I think have come out flying here personally. This is because of larger wholesale nerfs to magic in the game. And it's just made level 1 and 2 wizards, I would say particularly level 1 wizards, really great and really useful. The reason for that is wizards, instead of gaining their full level as a casting value bonus, it is now rounded, it's halved, and then you round up to the nearest whole number. So if you're level 3, for example, you halve 3, which is 1.5, and round up to 2. So level 1 and 2 wizards are now getting +1 to their casting value. 3s and 4s are getting +2, bringing that, edging them, really closely together, which is really nice. And I put down there as well, +1 to cast is really good now, as well. So orcs shaman, who, if they are in, if they do, what is it, mob rule or whatever, if they're embedded in a unit of orc boys, they will gain +1 to their casting roll. Units of Tzeentch warriors with a Tzeentch mage will have the same effect. You can find out more about that in this weekend's army guide that's just gone out, which is really great for them as well. So yeah, very happy there. The other wholesale change that has come in for wizards is they can now only cast as many spells in a turn as they have as their level. So for if for whatever reason a level 2 wizard knows 3 spells, they would only be able to cast 2 spells in the turn, which is really nice. So you can't give a wizard an extra, Ruby Ring of Ruin or whatever the common thing is to give them a free fireball. So they would have to choose to use that fireball in place of a different spell, which is really nice, I think. And then across the board, most spells have dropped in casting value, which is really, really nice. So some of those like kind of peripheral spells that kind of people were just a bit like on the edge of whether they're kind of useful and would often drop for signature spells, maybe might come in and be a bit more useful. So that's really nice. Cool. Other big winners, impetuous units. So impetuous units now make impetuous rolls on a leadership test instead of rolling a 4-up and moving and being forced to charge if they I can never remember if it's roll above or roll below. I always get it mixed up, but it's one of the two at the moment. Well, I say at the moment, as of yesterday, it is now the case that you need to make a leadership test. There is another bit in the errata as well that specifies wording on leadership tests, which I think affects stupidity, and I should double check that before the stream finishes. But leadership tests that specify that they have to use their own leadership can no longer use like a rallying cry leadership test or something like that. You have to make your own one. Impetuous in the wording is they just make a leadership test, so they would be able to use leaders, which is going to be really great. Warband units who are impetuous, like orcs, because orcs are impetuous pretty much across the board. Warband impetuous won't take warband into account to give you that leadership bonus, so it's going to be on their kind of base bit as well. Big winners out of this. It was speculated beforehand in a bunch of leaked rule sets, but and people were talking about it, but this has come to pass that is Errantry Crusades. Where are you? There we go. Errantry Crusades, which is great because I'm actually in the process of building up an Errantry Crusade army, so I personally have benefited very well from this. Cool. Any questions there? Otherwise, we'll move on. Cool. So that's kind of the big winners. I'm sure I've missed something that someone else will say. But this is like somewhere in the middle where, it's kind of like a little bit of a nerf, but it's not necessarily the worst. So this is poisoned attacks. So poisoned attacks no longer automatically wounds units on a 6. You now get a +2 +2 to the wound roll instead. So no auto wounding. You're getting +2 to wound, which is changes kind of the math and everything a little bit. But I think this is probably a bit of a benefit to dragons here, because they will no longer be taking loads of auto hits. You're still going to have to roll 2 lots to actually wound the dragon, even on a +2, which is nice. I mean, I'll come to people that are suffering because of this in a moment, but yeah. Regeneration now affects all wounds taken, so you don't the way that it worked before is you would roll a regen. So if you've taken like D3 multiple wounds, you'd roll the regen, and then if you failed it, you would then take all D3 or D6 or whatever it was wounds. Whereas now you roll the number of wounds, and you then roll a regen for each wounds. So the regeneration now affects all wounds taken. Personally, I think this is fine. I was at a tournament a couple of weekends ago, and my Tree Man Ancient ended up taking a massive hit to the face with an Empire Cannonball. And it was like 50-50 on the 4-up regen. Do I shrug all of them, or do I take all of the wounds that are going through? And I failed the regen, and then he rolled a 6, and it just completely killed my Tree Man Ancient in one hit. And part of me is like, it would have felt nicer for me to have been able to roll a regen for each of the number of wounds taken. And I'm glad kind of now that it has come through this way, because I think it kind of makes more sense, personally. Over to the big losers. So Vanguard movement. If you've got Vanguard movement, so if you're not familiar with Vanguard and you're new to this all, Vanguard movement allows you to make a move after you have deployed. So once you put everyone on the table, you can make that movement, and before, obviously, if you're in range of someone, you could charge, which is a bit of a feels bad from an opponent's side. That has totally been taken away now, which is probably a good thing. I would say. Stupid units now just sit there, which feels, I think, a little bit more in line with what they should be doing instead of moving forwards. I think you could kind of choose the distance of how far your a stupid movement. Level 3 and 4 wizards, who this guy is like supposed to be representing, right? This Chaos Sorcerer. I love this model, actually. I should probably grab it at some point. Level 3 and 4 wizards, as I said, they've kind of taken a big nerf, and they're already quite expensive points wise. So part of me, I think you might get more value out of having loads of little level 1 and 2 wizards floating around. The benefit you'll have from a level, even from like, you just need a level 3 one to be your dispelling wizard. Like, what would you be paying the points premium for? Like an extra spell cast. You'd probably want to put a lore familiar on them or something like that. It may make more sense to have like a bunch of level 1 and 2 wizards. I'm really eager to kind of try that out and see how it works, because just that difference of having +1 to cast now versus being dispelled by 3 if you're going up against level 4 is quite good, and I'm quite intrigued. Fleeing wizards can no longer attempt to dispel, which is great. Oh, I've just pulled my headphones out so I can't hear anything. Putting that back in. Which is great. Pillar of Flames is no longer you choose the path. It now scatters, which is great. Pillar of Flames was really, was really quite oppressive. I think, when I was playing in this tournament I mentioned the other day, I played against a Tomb Kings player, and you can just see like the pain in someone's face when, a huge burning kind of thing is just rolling through like a giant thing. It is a real feels bad, and that's not fun. Especially if you're able to get like 3 or 4 pillars of flame off. It's not a great gaming moment for a lot of people, and that's kind of what we're here for. Speaking of the other fiery thing is the Ruby Ring of Ruin, which has been downgraded to a level 1 bound spell. And as I mentioned before, if you're giving Ruby Ring of Ruin to a caster, they will have access to it. But if they use Ruby Ring of Ruin, they're going to have to sacrifice using one of the other spells that they have, which is great and interesting. Next up on the big losers, Wood Elves. This one hits me in the feels. Woodland Ambush has been reduced in size by 3 inches, which really sucks. I have a pre-made, I made up even a board that I could put my trees on, like as a thing, and that is exactly 12 inches in diameter. So all of that hard work, and I'm just going to have to like throw it out or wait for the next edition when it goes back up to 12 inches or whatever. Really sucks. And I feel like Wood Elves are not necessarily in the best place anyway. They have a lot of very expensive units. Their shooting is not necessarily the best, despite being like the shooting gunline army. They suffer a lot from being at range. They don't have much in the way of high strength shooting, so they struggle to take down high toughness targets. So that nerf to poison arrows or poison attacks, I think, really hits Wood Elves hard here. They're going to really struggle to deal with things like dragons and stuff in the future, especially because they have high points value models. It's going to be really hard for them to go forward. So that's and like I said, it just hits me in the feels. And finally, if you've got printouts and books, I'm sorry, this does kind of really suck every time. I hate to put a negative spin on it. I think these books are beautiful, but it really sucks when these kind of erratas and everything kind of make it all redundant and stuff changes. It's a really annoying system, especially when people have paid like a lot of money for these books, and I think it just needs to be flagged. It sucks. I don't want to have to go and felt tip parts of my books with the and change the casting values and all of that. So yeah, that's kind of, I think, most of it. A few final bits that I haven't mentioned. Probably should have put them in the neither here nor there category. Just some clarifications. Impact hits now definitely happen before challenges, which is great. Line hammer, I think, has kind of taken a bit of a hit there. You can still obviously have like a big gun line, so dwarves can still have a giant gun line, but if you charge that gun line, they've only got because they've only got a 3-inch move most of the time. They can only now reach as far as of the movement of the model. So support like in supporting attacks. So if you hit the center of that gun line, all of the ones at the end are not going to be able to make supporting attacks, which is great to kind of counter that. I think it's largely a thing at competitive levels, but it does happen in beginner games and stuff as well. I've already covered that wizards can only cast as many spells as their level, not all they have, and it's been clarified as well now that countercharge isn't a charging move, which I'd need to go and double check what else countercharge says, because if it's not a charge, then if you're a horse unit and you're carrying lances, kind of what's the point of doing a countercharge? Like, it's already quite difficult to get off a lot of the time with a countercharge, but what I'd need to kind of double check and see what the benefit of it is. I don't know off the top of my head. If someone can say, then that would be really helpful. But yeah, that's the end of it. That's my PowerPoint presentation. Thank you for coming along. What do you think? Any questions?